Hello, hello, hello. This is Dr. Troy.
And I'm Ben-Jamin Toy.
We're broadcasting from the Cohesion Culture headquarters in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina, where even when it rains, the sun still shines.
You're going to hear real-time stories from leaders confessing their most crucial or recent uh-oh experiences in business.
Learn what their uh-oh cost them, steps they took to fix it, and how they planned
to not do that one again.
All right, cohesive leaders, Ben-Jamin Toy coming at you. I am joined in the studio today with Joe Zahaitis coming from Chicago. Great to have you here today.
Thank you for taking the time. Appreciate being on the show.
Awesome, awesome. So we like to get started the same way. We want to get to know or have our audience also get to know you in a more personal way. So would love to learn something about you that isn't on your resume or LinkedIn bio. So something not professional about you.
The biggest thing that's kind of not on my bios, because it's typically, I'm a big gamer. I run 3 different clans online. I have a number of Discord channels, and fundamentally we play Arma, which is a military simulation game, but we also do DCS, and I'm currently spotting a Valheim server. So that's something that you wouldn't normally know about me, and clearly I am not 20.
Well, hey, I love the idea of hey, you're connecting with people. I literally just had a friend the other day ask me for we have a lot of tablets that we use in our business. I've got old tablets. He's actually converting his gaming table, but everything, instead of having to do it all manually, he's going to have some tablets. And so he's combining the physical world of D&D with some table and all that kind of stuff, and tablets and technology. So
we do that occasionally, not lately, but we do that as well.
Yeah. So yeah, that's awesome. I love creating games, which is odd, but I don't like playing. I haven't been a gamer per se, but I love creating experiences that engage people. But I love escape rooms and stuff like that. So thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
There you go.
All right, Joe, I want to know a little bit more about your identity in the sense of what are the character traits that you would describe yourself as, or if you were to leave the room, how would others describe you? Or what are things you aspire to be known as, right? Don't remove this from any roles and hats you have, but who is Joe?
From my perspective, and not as a sales pitch or anything like that, but in the context of, I've been a sales and other leader for quite some time right now. I started as a salesperson 1 million years ago, and that was truly 1 million years ago. But as a part of growing, one of the things that has become my kind of zhuzh, if you will, in life, and we just talked about it relative to gaming, is for me, gaming is more about community than it is the games we play. It's the guys I'm playing with. And from a leader perspective and from a business perspective, when I walk out of the room, it's to be known as that team. I got your back. My job as a leader, my job in the roles I have currently, and the roles I've recently had in the past as a senior leader, that team is your life. And that's what you should be aspiring to be.
Now, from a sales perspective, though, what character traits does that show? Is that you're able to talk to anybody and sell ice to an Eskimo? Like, what about your behavior is represented by saying you're a sales leader?
The best I can do, and that one is to use the comment that my girlfriend always says to me all the time. I'll be at the airport and standing in line. I'm like, oh my God, honey, I heard it's snowing in Chicago. She goes, how do you know? I'm like, I'm talking to the guy in line here. We're getting on the airplane. She goes, of course you are. Because wherever we go, we run into people, we meet them, we become fast friends. And again, I don't, is that a part of who I am? I would like to think so. I mean, I don't try to do it. It's just, I think when you're open, people are open to you. And I think that's a huge part of, as a society, what we need to do. And then I'm going to throw a sales pitch in there. It's a big thing from my perspective as a leader, operations, sales, or otherwise. The soft skills are a huge part of what we need to be focusing on, both in society and in life. So in the context of, what that salespersonness, it's not about selling, ice to an Eskimo. It's not about necessarily being able to talk to anyone. It's hard. It's hard to open up a conversation, but being open to saying, I see you're wearing this pin. I see you're just breaking the ice with something small, huge. It's enormous.
Yep. And you said, to me, it sounds like you've never met a stranger, right? Everybody's been connected. And we totally align here at Cohesion Culture. It's connection before content. And in our sales process, the rapport, that starts before any type of question about what brought you in today. The moment you ask that question, you're no longer in rapport because that's the sales process. Right. So it's about noticing that pin, that sluggish approach. Maybe, you know, where, oh, did you go a little hard last night? You know, those types of things. So totally get you there. So that tells me your observant nature, that you care, seeing the smaller things. And so that's a big deal. So, but community is a big part. You know, I think when sales also live out the core values of yourself or a company, you actually don't feel like you're selling because you're helping people make decisions to use their money wisely, right? So it's not like you're putting a square peg in a round hole.
In today's sales environment, and this is speaking from a human perspective, we're not talking about sales, but in today's world, selling is not a good idea. Buying. You want the consumer, the customer, the client, the whatever it is to feel that they have bought what they want. You've not sold them anything. Right. You're just leading them on the path to say, okay, this makes a certain amount of sense and I like what you're saying. Yep. And in the context of building that trust, huge part of it. Okay, that makes sense. Let's do this.
And in today's world, the idea of returns and buyer's remorse means everything's on the buyer side anyway. So you trying to convince somebody of something that isn't in their nature or good for them, it's just going to come back to you and it's just more paperwork and frustration anyway. So why not try to have a good fit?
Yep.
So that's awesome. Okay. So we got to know you a little bit. Tell me now some of the roles you've had. You said you've had this long career. So let's talk about roles.
Let's not make it too long. Let's not make it too long, yeah. But it's been long.
I mean, I think the quota was 1,000,000 years, you know. So
when Jesus left his sandals in the desert is kind of when I started. Yeah, that's kind of when I started.
Yeah. So roles you've had that way, also familial connections, anything like that. Anything you want to talk about, hats you've worn?
Started again a while ago. I started as basically an employee of the state of Illinois when I got out of college with a small job and a small role, working for the state of Illinois in downtown Chicago. Quickly moved from that to being a commercial banker at Bank of America, American National Bank. We're going to get to Bank of America. American National Bank, which really doesn't even exist as a bank anymore, but I was a commercial lending officer for American National Bank many, many, many years ago. So I have banking in the background. And then I moved, I won't say quickly, but probably one of those big aha moments in life. And then we can talk about that at greater depth, but let's go through the timeline and then go back to that one. Yep. I moved into the payment space shortly, number of years after becoming a commercial banking officer. I've been in the payment space ever since. I've tried to get out twice, taken roles in 2 companies that are outside of the credit card and payments industry. And I've gotten sucked back in both times, not in a bad way, in a good way, but it's apparently what I was intended to do in life. And it's time to just stop fighting it, bottom line.
Gotcha. Okay.
I've led sales teams. I've led account management teams. I worked for Ingenico ePayments, which was an international payment processing company. There's another one of your aha moments we can talk about. I didn't know what I didn't know about payments until I got into the international space. We operate in the United States with this somewhat myopic view that says, oh, the 4 major card brands, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover. Boom, there you go. The minute you step out of the United States, you find out that that's this much of the payment model around the globe. So it made a huge difference. And I told all of the direct reports I had at that time, I said, learn as much as you can while we're here, because you now in the context of the payments world, which is small by nature, there's not a lot of people who do it. Now, in terms of knowing from an international perspective, you know what a very, very thin sliver of the population knows. And you should be proud of that. And you should make sure you know it and walk away with it.
That's good. That's good. All right. Well, from that career, what moment are you willing to share to our audience that you messed up on?
You said this earlier. We've talked about this. I won't say we talked off camera, but we talked off camera. I started thinking of moments where I screwed up. Moments in the context of screw ups in life. Yes. I've seen those. I've operated with them, and we can talk about a few of them. In terms of where I've screwed up, I've literally, as you said it, I've been trying to think of ones. Not that I've never made a mistake in life. I've made a number of mistakes in life, and we'll get to a big one that's more recent. But in terms of an moment going back a ways, there was a company we had back a while ago in another world, in another company that is no longer around. So from a non-disclosure perspective, I can certainly speak of it, that I went to, that was located in a state outside of Illinois. And we went to their facility to see their credit card processing facility, wherein they told us they took care of licenses for hunters around the Midwest, in the upper Midwest, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wisconsin, Minnesota. And this was what they did. Blah, 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 blah. Shorter version, because we don't have all the time in the world. It wasn't just hunting licenses. They had a full-blown production facility, and it was evidently a 1-900 location number recording video studio before OnlyFans was OnlyFans. Well, we shut them down because I didn't know this. The sales guy said he didn't know it. And I walked in the door at our organization, and I said, we're not playing this game. So we shut them down. We talked to our then acquiring processor, who literally held all of their money. And they called, and they made us every offer under the sun, including, I'll give you $5 million in cash just to release what's out there, because clearly this was not as intended, not as reported, and not something we were going to go with. We gave them 30 days to find another provider. We released most of the money after 6 months to make sure there were no chargebacks. And that was an interesting aha moment. You want to talk about that further, or you want to move to the more recent one?
Well, are you able to unpack that one of something that you chose to do? Like, what was the personal impact of there that allowed that to happen, and what did you learn from that? So
from my perspective, the biggest thing is that we're talking about a major company and a lot of money. And as a middle manager at the time, this was a significant decision that I was in essence pulling the trigger on. And if it were wrong, that would have been what we call CLM, a career limiting move. And I reviewed the nature of the results and the information that was out there. And I looked at what was in front of me, and I said, in good conscience, even if I end up being wrong, I can't not pull the trigger on this. So what we did, I ended up being right, which was a fortunate thing. Right. But from a personal perspective, I was scared.
So I would, the lesson I would take from that is that wasn't an aha moment, or an uh-oh moment, in the sense that you evaluated, you made a you made a decision based on values and didn't have the mistake going on. The worst, this would be a whole different story, is if you saw this, you turned around and let it go on, right? So let's go down another example that you may have had that and it's okay that if you're when I say these things about the uh-ohs.
Oh no, this next one is one where I made a mistake. Okay. That, to me, that one is called I would rather do what's right over what's easy. And and I've used that in my career going forward. From my perspective, though, that was a very, very much, it was a scary moment for me, truly.
Doing what's right is never wrong.
What's that?
Doing what's right is never wrong.
Correct. But sometimes it's hard because it goes against the grain. And that you were talking about millions of dollars in a client that had been, you heard the earlier words, so I don't have to say them again. Bottom line, it was a tough one. More recently, as a senior manager of a pretty good sized organization with, at the time, 6 direct reports, and ended up expanding to become 13 direct reports. But with the 6 direct reports I had, 3 of them decided, not because of me, because of prior management, excuse me. I got a little phlegm going on here. Prior to me, based on a prior manager and stuff, I had just walked in the door at this organization. So I wasn't there a hot minute, call it 3 or 4 months, when 3 of the 6 people that were under my report walked out the door. They all left within the same week. 2 left on Monday, and then the 3rd one left on Wednesday. I don't know if there was timed if the person just hadn't gotten authorization by his wife yet to do it, but literally my 6-person team went to 3 inside of a week. And we're talking about the 6 people I had, each had 35 accounts. These are some of the biggest of the biggest of the big accounts. I used to tell all my people, friends, do you watch the Super Bowl? Yes. Do you watch the ads on the Super Bowl? Yes. Do you see the ad people that are, yeah, those are my clients. I mean, when I worked for Bank of America Merchant Services, it was some of the top companies around the country, big companies. And the people that reported to me, we managed all of those. One of them I can say by name was Subway. So we had I had an individual that had 26,000 Subway account. That was her job. So we had a whole bunch of those. She was not one that left. But of the 6 people that reported to me, 3 of them left. My mistake. I told my then manager, I got this. I'll take care of their 3 bit of work while my 3 take care of their accounts while I'm interviewing to hire and backfill those roles. He told me at that moment, he goes, spread that work around those 3. They're going to be busy for the next 3 to 6 months. Your job is to be recruiting and hiring to backfill those 3 roles. For the next 4 months, about killed me. I had to walk in hat in hand and say, I need help. And he basically got all my team on the phone with me, and we redistributed a whole bunch of accounts temporarily we gave them some spiffs for the fact that they were going to manage these for 6 months. And my exclusive focus in my job was to go out in the recruiting path and find the 3 people that were going to fill that. That was a mistake. I should not, that was a bridge too far. I should have not taken on those jobs, roles of that responsibility, and had my job was my job, and that was managing the people. My job was not to pick up all that extra work, but I felt bad that I was going to assign 3 people way more work than they would typically do. I felt guilty and bad. That's my job. My job was to make sure that the clients were covered, not with me necessarily doing the work, but being done. And my job was to make sure to fill those back roles. That was an error on my part, and it stung, because when I had to go into my then boss, great guy, love him to death, won't mention his name, but great guy. He let me have it. He let me know, I told you 2 months ago. And I had stuff that was going sideways, and it was not good. We got it taken care of. Everything was fine. It all worked out. But that was a little bit of a stinger walking out of the office, because it's like, I told you, you should have done this to start with, and you thought you knew better.
You mentioned part of this, and I have a inkling that there's more to it. Mm-hmm. What do you think are the factors that led to you making that decision to say, I got this, and not fully distributing it?
First, I was a new manager in this role. I'd been a senior manager before, but I was a new manager with this company, and I'm walking into a senior level team that has their established accounts, and they all have their full business days. And given the fact that each of them manages 35 accounts, it's a full-time job. You're not given hundreds of accounts. You're given 35, because these are top line accounts, and it takes a lot of work to manage them on a daily basis. You're working with all sorts of other departments and divisions within the company to make sure that that client is taken care of. So they had a full load on their plates. I knew that because I'd been there for a few months already. And where I made the mistake was, here I've got a senior level team that I'm about to piss off because I'm about to assign them more work. I barely know them. They barely know me. I don't have street cred. I don't know how much they trust me. And I don't want to say I don't know what I'm doing, but I was a new job. I'm not going to lie. And instead of doing what, again, should have done, what was right, I did what I thought would keep everybody happy. And that was the mistake.
So by trying to keep people happy, you get yourself into the world of hurt, right? What did that decision cost you? What were the actual impacts for you?
That whole job, for the time I had it, was 5:30 in the morning until 9, 10 o'clock every night. So it really didn't cost any more time, but it was a significant amount of pain for the first couple months before I admitted the fact that I should not have done it that way and have reassigned the tasks. Okay. And then it wasn't as much pain after I finally released it to the team, and the team totally took care of me. They backed me up. If nothing else, going to them, I won't call it hat in hand, but going to them and saying, I need help. I'm your boss, but I need help because I got to go out and I got to hire people to backfill what we just lost. And the individuals that left, no disrespect to them, but whatever, they're gone. We got to hire to backfill it. But that actually established more trust with my team by knowing that I could lean on them. And they're like, thank you, Joe, for knowing that we could actually, in support of you and us and the 6 of us, backfill this role. I didn't have my trust of them, respect, that they would in fact pick that up. I thought it would be a bridge too far for them, and I would have nothing but pain after it. That was a mistake.
Do you feel that there was some ego involved in that?
No. I think the bigger thing was it's a pleasing personality. I won't deny that as an individual. And the nature of it, instead of making people uncomfortable, I wanted everybody to be happy. And sometimes discomfort has to happen. So I was willing to take the discomfort on myself. About killed me. But I was willing to take on the discomfort myself rather than put discomfort on others because I wanted to make everybody happy.
So one of the things that our audience is the emerging leader. So what is a scenario or a little piece of advice then you could say if they're given this situation in the younger, maybe not their senior level yet, but they're part of a team where this happens? What is the advice you give to somebody that's in that position where half they got their first job as a manager, they have 6 reports? What do you advise them to do, knowing what you know of how it affected you and what the team ultimately did?
No matter how long you've been in the role, I think the first step, and we kind of talked about this, and I fell into the trap myself, even though I'm an older dude, we talked about it, soft skills, communication. First thing I should have done was gotten the entire team on the phone and let them know what was going down. I didn't do that. I tried to manage it as a manager as opposed to as a team member with them. I should have gotten the entire team on the phone and say, look, I got to break this stuff up because I got to go out on the recruiting hire and I need you guys to pick up the slack. Communication would have been important. They would have known I was under pressure. I would have been able to then bring that information to them. You guys are going to be under pressure. Very sorry about that, but we have to do it. So I think communication becomes the key piece. Don't hold back. Don't keep it inside. Don't try and provide a shield, a front that says it's all fine. It's not all fine. And we got to work on it together.
Yeah. You don't need to try to be the duck there, you know,
Right.
looking all good, you know, and working over there. Because there a lot of folks often see that there's weakness. And I'm going to make this even a gender. So a lot of men associate asking for help as weakness.
Yes, 100%.
And I would think that you would probably be in the same camp, that I would say that the weakness actually is not asking for help when you need it.
True.
And so, and what you just said is, to a younger person, is that communication piece up front. Because I think when people are informed with information, or when they're provided information, they get to make their choice, and the choice wasn't made for them. And as you learned, they did it. They were part of a team. They were enterprise wide thinking, and the choice on your own by wanting to shield them from that didn't allow them to say, "Hey, I am a team player."
Right.
So I think, in anybody
100%.
in that situation, you would prevent somebody from letting them show their true colors by trying to keep them from that opportunity.
I had been in the role maybe 3 to 6 months. I mean, I had not been there long. And had this same situation happened a year and a half, 2 years on, I would have totally called on the team to help, because I knew them better. I trusted them. I know they trusted me, and it would have been fine. Where the failure on my part was, I'd only been there a short period of time, and I'm like, I don't know any of these people well enough, and I don't know what kind of pushback I'm going to get. Bottom line, it's not even a matter of I'm asking you to do this work. I'm assigning this work to you, like it or not. You got to do it while I go off and do recruiting. And that was the part I was uncomfortable with at the time. But again, long term, if it would have happened longer after I'd established a relationship with them, don't believe that relationship doesn't exist right away. Even if it doesn't, you got to do what you got to do. Bottom line.
Yeah. But would you say, though, if you're in the advice, you're saying, yes, if you had the role for a year, it would have been a no-brainer. I'm going to tell everybody and do this. But if somebody else is in the situation, even if they're in a month, bring the situation to everybody? Or do you recommend them try to do it all themselves?
No, if you are in that management role, whether it's a month, 3 months, 6 months, or 4 years, if you're in that management role and you're, the best use of your time is whatever that is. And in this particular instance, it was going on the recruiting circuit, working with HR, getting a bunch of people and doing interviews. My job was outside of the context of taking care of this. Then as a manager, like it or not, good or bad, long time or short time in the role, your job is to offload that, because that is not your critical function. Best and highest and best use of your time. The highest and best use of my time in that context was to be the person doing the recruiting and backfilling those roles, not to be managing individual accounts and questions.
So how then, moving forward, did you apply this lesson, the thing you learned about the communication piece? How have there been situations where you applied this knowing what you now know?
Yes, 100% of the time. And I get so many of them that we're not even going to talk about those, because when something happens, my first goal, new roles, and I've taken on some new roles since that particular role. Make sure you're in communication with the team. I have a strong sense of community, obviously with the gaming, but also with all of my teams, where I want them to feel they can call on me at any time, whether it be personal or otherwise, but that I can also call on them. And I've not had to do it as bad as that one would have been in terms of reassigning stuff, but I have had to call on the team and say, look, it's going to be a long couple of weeks. We got to do this. And that's just, we got to do.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's, some folks need to hear it and do things a couple times. Right. But so it also a testament to your internal workings that, okay, I had this lesson. Now I'm going to keep on, I'm going to do it differently each time. Now communication, though, is sometimes a buzz phrase. People say, okay, the failure to communicate was the issue, but how do you ensure that it's not just words being said and comprehension is maintained, right? Because I like to, when I do my facilitation, I say communication is not key, comprehension is. So how have you learned to make sure that it's not just words being said, but that someone understands what is being asked of them?
I think that plays into not even this particular instance, but just across the entire management scheme. I don't call it buy-in. It's a dialogue. You have to get buy-in in the context of the dialogue and make sure, to your point, that there's understanding. I'm a big believer in, I get no promotional on this, but extreme ownership by Jocko, is it Willing? You own everything up the chain, you own everything down the chain. As a manager, it's natural to own everything down the chain, but to own everything up the chain as well. If I need to make sure that I'm getting good information, and that is something that I've taken away from that particular instance, but also from that book and my own career, making sure you're getting good information, but then make sure you're distributing good information and you're getting that I won't call it buy-in, but the acknowledgement that they understand this is what I need you to do. It may not be pretty, it may not be perfect, it may not be what you want to do, but now you have an understanding of what we need to get done, and there are reasons why. And I think explaining the reasons to people, okay, in that instance, look, we're down 3, we're down 50%. I need help. There you go. There's the reason why we have to do that. I think people are a lot more adult than sometimes we give them credit for, no matter how old or young they are. And we need to understand that just sharing, this is what I need and here's why. The why becomes an important part.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a really good lesson. Joe, what is a question you thought I would ask that I haven't asked?
What's my leadership style, perhaps? I mean, that in the context of we're talking about, leaders, what's my leadership style? That would be one I would have, I'm like, okay, that's a natural kind of a fit for a leadership kind of a thing.
All right, Joe, what's your leadership style?
And I, knowing you were going to ask it, as I was saying, I'm like, okay, better come up with a good answer for this one. My leadership style is truly that sense of community. When it comes to, and I want to bring gaming in because it has a great play for this. When I started playing Arma a million years ago,
explain Arma to me or the audience.
Arma is a military simulation game. So you drop on the ground as a whole bunch of real people as visages within a game, and you're up against bad guys. You're shooting bad guys. You're operating as a unit, small unit, whether it be fire team, squad, platoon, and we would spot anywhere from 20 to 45 guys in a server, real humans. And we always played what's called PvE, people versus basically the computer. So we never did it. We went against each other. We would just go against computers. So someone set up a mission. We got to go get the bad guys. So as a part of that, you have communication both within the squad, communication up channel to the management team. The key to it, though, and we talked about this, is having the trust of the guys on the squad that I'm going to not lead them into death. And the reason I'm using gaming as this is because a lot of times in business, people don't perceive it as a life and death environment, but you've got a manager that is saying, this is the path we need to go down. Does he really know? Is he really communicating? And does he really have the best interest of the entire team at heart? No. Management told me we have to go from A to B. That's what we're going to go do. And if I lose a half a dozen guys along the way, I don't care. As long as I get my salary and everything else, that's fine. But in a gaming environment, particularly Arma, which is a military simulation, when I take these guys in, we do respawn kind of stuff. So you're not going to be out of the game for the rest of the whole mission, but you'll hear it from your guys if you take them into the middle of a firefight and everyone gets deuced with a mass cas. So you don't want to do that. So the street cred and the respect you get, and this is where I was going to from a gaming perspective, you have to develop that respect over a period of time. You don't walk in the door day one, hey, I'm taking lead. This is where we're going.
Yep.
Is
no
it?
One's running in Leroy Jenkinsing it.
Right. Does he really know what he's doing? I don't know that I would do it that way. And then they don't know the thought process I went through as a leader to know that based on the terrain and everything else, this is the best approach. Yep. And in explaining it to a squad, you don't have that kind of time. We got to move. We got to go. We got stuff to do. So, but you have to gain that street cred over time. So when I first joined Arma a million years ago, I was a grunt for a while, not because I had to be, but I had to develop that level of street cred with the guys to say, look, if my name is Mad Solo. If Solo says we're going from A to B, he's probably thought it through and I'm going to follow him. Same thing in a business environment. You need to develop some of that street cred where people are like, okay, you've not done me wrong. You've done a good job. I believe that you've got my back. That's probably the biggest one. I am not going to lead you into a tough spot where we're going to be in a horrible situation. And now I'm going to have to be figuring out what I'm doing for my next career move because of this. That's where you need to have that trust and respect with your team to say, look, this is what we have to do. Sometimes I can't share everything, not because of NDA or, you can't know because it's senior management stuff. It would take too long. Trust me, I've thought this through. Right. But the trust me part is the part they have to do.
There's a that part of it. is really in the book Credibility. Have you ever? It's
No, I would. Okay,
James Kouzes and Barry Posner. Okay, so what he talks about, what the concept of the book Credibility is about, is that there's a generational piece to this too, depending on what the company you're at. Sometimes there is an old guard workforce that says, trust me, because I built this company and the people at the top with me were there at the beginning. And so to some people, they're on a pedestal, they walk on water, they do all these things. But all the new hires, they're like, well, what are you doing? All I see you is golfing. So the concept here is current credibility. Where is the manager that actually is going to roll up the sleeves and help you out doing a project and all that kind of stuff? So what you're talking about, to me, what I'm hearing is you want managerial leadership with current credibility. They're willing to roll up the sleeves and get their hands dirty to solve a problem, and not just, go get this done. And I'm just going to go take a break over here and, see that you did it.
The best analogy I've heard in that regard, and yes, plays into that, is what is a manager versus what is a leader.
Yeah.
And a manager says, I am telling you what to do. This is what I want you to do. A leader says, I need you to do this. And to your point, I may not be rolling up my sleeves to do it. And in the context of the gaming world, I'm typically back of the bus telling everybody where to go. I'm not the guy up front doing what we call pew pew time. Everyone else is getting the shots off. But from that perspective, they're still trusting me to get them from A to B without dying. So in the business world, it's that same kind of thing. It's like, I may not be the guy taking the shots. I might not be the one doing the work that I need you to do, but you need to trust me that there's a reason why I'm having you do it. And it is serving a greater good, and we will all do better at the end of the day.
And I would say, to keep on with that even the military side of things, the trust that's there with the commanders that are there on the ground with you, compared to someone in an ivory tower, right? Like, you've got way more.
And I've had those bosses in life too.
Right?
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. So they're up there giving all these things, but they don't see the impact.
Correct.
This guy may be back in the tent, but he's making the decisions, but he's there still at risk. But yes, so I get those scenarios, and the whole the concept of that is that leadership is personal, and you want to have that credibility within your team, but it might require you doing some things that you haven't done in years, so that you've got this, because the newer workforce is not just reading the press clippings from years ago. They want to see what the current action.
What have you done lately? Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
What have you done lately?
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree 100%.
absolutely. Oh, awesome.
You brought up a ton, and I have a new book to read. Thank you very much. I will be reading that book. I'm a big book reader, so I've already got it stacked up over here. Don't have it on Amazon yet, but I
got 3 more for it if you want.
Okay, we'll get to those. I love it. I have about 35 that I tell all my sales teams when they start talking. These are the ones that I recommend. One of the first books, I will just say it out loud, but then I want to go back to this concept of that I want to talk about credibility. One of the first books I recommend for all salespeople, all. Spin Selling by Neil Rackham. Spin Selling, it's like 1989. It's dated, but the nature of the study they did and the stuff they did, I think in a large, long cycle sale, not, $5 bracelets coming in from overseas, longer, large cycle sale. Neil Rackham wrote a book called Spin Selling: Situation, Problem, Implication, and Need Payoff. And the context of that says, before I ever walk into a meeting, I have asked all of the situation questions. Oh, we can talk about another fail one that I got. Oh, I just thought of it. It's perfect. It plays right into this. It was before I read the book. I want to talk about one real quick topic. I don't know how long you want to go, but one quick topic is, my dad told me a million years ago as a 16-year-old man, he says, one of the things you have to learn in life is it's wisdom. And you cannot short cycle it. You cannot buy it. You cannot go to school for it and get it. When you have it, you'll know it. But until you have it, you don't have it. And don't try and claim this, the whole concept of fake it till you make it. Guess what? If you're young and you don't have that wisdom, don't play like you do, because from the guys that do have the wisdom, we're going to look at it and go, we see right through it. Be who you are, be real, but don't try and be something that you're not, because, and this is what the plan was for my dad in terms of until you have wisdom, integrity. Integrity is the one thing you have as a human being that you can build, that becomes your rock, and it's the one thing you can screw up. Because if you don't have integrity and stand behind your words and back your people up and do that stuff, trust me, that takes you down as fast as trying to build it up. So from an integrity perspective, that is something I'm very big on. There are things you talk about doing what's right versus what's easy or what's fast or what makes you the most money. Not always, because if you do that, that takes a notch off your integrity.
Yeah. That's awesome.
You want to hear the screw up one? I love
Yeah,
the
let's go for it.
I'm a sales guy. A million years ago, we talked about this in the petroleum industry. I've got this appointment with, I think it was Diamond Shamrock. I've got this appointment with Diamond Shamrock, big oil company. They've said I can come down and visit them in Houston. I schedule a trip. I'm going down to Houston. I've got a meeting with the big dog. I'm going to meet with the guy. He is the decision maker. And I know this because I talked to my boss. Travel down to Houston. Get the rental car. I'm building up for a great punchline. Get the rental car, staying there the night because I've got an afternoon meeting and I'm never going to be able to get home in time. There aren't enough flights and the whole thing. I get there. I walk in the door. The secretary walks me into this huge office and he says, Joseph Zahaitis, glad to meet you. I'm here to talk to you. I'm with this particular payments company, SPS Payment Systems, which doesn't exist. First words out of his mouth, he said, so what are you going to tell me new that wasn't in the last RFP you guys sent us last year? What RFP? Why don't you go back home and read that RFP and give me a call when you have? I just flew to Houston. I just had a rental car. I just had a hotel room. I just stayed overnight. And I had a 30-second meeting, walked out of that office with my tail between my legs. You don't think I didn't know about every single RFP that we ever submitted to anyone ever again after that? Oh, hell no.
Wow.
Because that was a big tail between the leg because I was the shizzle. I was a sales guy. I was a petroleum guy. I didn't know we had submitted an RFP. I hadn't gone into the RFP library. There it was right there. Huge, back in the paper days, huge rack. The RFP was about that thick that we had submitted to them the year before. All the questions we had answered about all the things we could do better than JCPenney's and this and that and the other thing. I hadn't read it. I didn't even know it existed. And the first words out of his mouth, what are you going to tell me that it wasn't in the RFP you sent last time? And I'm like doe-eyed looking at him like, I don't know what you're talking about. He just says, why don't you go back and read that and give me a call?
So what did you learn from that one?
2 inches high. Always, this is then I get back to spin selling. Situation, problem, implication. That is a situation question. You should know everything that can be known. 10K, 10Q, annual report, notes to the file. Do we have an RFP? Have we ever responded? What does the communication look like? Who are the people that talk? You need to be prepared, especially at a high end like that. When you walk into the room, you better be ready. And you better be able to answer pretty much any question that they could bring up with, even if it's on page 369 at the bottom in the footnotes. You better be prepared when you walk in the room. The more prepared you are, the better you are, because I can tell you the next meetings, okay, yes, it was New York. Yes, it was downtown. Yes, it was Saks Fifth Avenue as a client of the same company. I walked in very prepared. There was nothing they couldn't ask me that I didn't know. And our EVP at the time when we walked out, he goes, I don't even know why I came. You got this whole thing covered. I'm like, well, that's what you pay me for.
That's
so,
awesome.
But yeah, that was a tail between the leg moment. I'll tell you that.
That's good. That's good. Well, Joe, how do folks get a hold of you? Anybody that wants to listen, that wants to learn about the things you're doing, how do they find you?
Zahaitis.com, lastname.com. I bought the domain. There's not a lot of Zahaitises in the world.
All right,
my
spell
kids.
That for everybody.
Zahai, T as in Tom, I, S as in Sam. Zahaitis.com. And I've got contact points on there, email. You can reach out to my assistant, Julie. She can make an appointment. You can meet. And I always love a great conversation. I will talk to any junior up and coming leader that has an interest in talking about stuff from a leadership perspective or anything they'd like to talk about. This kind of stuff, I love doing it.
That's awesome. And I'm going to end this session like we end all of our programs with the mantra of you don't have to know everything. You just need to be teachable.